Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome privilege to have you guys joining me here today. Got a bunch of stuff to cover today. Spielberg's directing a comic book movie. Does that make him a hypocrite considering his past comments? We've got a board member of the Academy Awards resigning and completely blasting the Academy Awards on his departure. With everybody talking about Deadpool and Solo, are people overlooking Jurassic World, the Academy Awards? The Rock's Jungle Cruise got a new cast member and a whole ton of stuff more. But before we get to anything else, let's go right off the top. And we're talking about this. As you guys know, there is a brand new Equalizer film coming, finally coming, in the form of Denzel Washington's. And it is, of course, the Equalizer 2. And the first official poster for Equalizer 2 has been released. Of course, the film comes out on July 20th. And the poster. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm kind of over this whole incorporating, if it's the third film in the franchise, incorporate the number 3 into the poster. And we see them doing this here with the Equalizer. Like this is the first sequel of all time. And kind of making it look like the number 2. But whatever. Look, I unabashedly really enjoyed the first Equalizer film. I'm pretty sure I probably like it more than most people. I know the first film didn't have a whole ton of fans. I really appreciated the first one, and I was kind of waiting for them to get the sequel coming. Now it's on its way. We got the first official poster. I gotta admit, I'm not a big fan of the poster. I'm really looking forward to the movie, but I've been more excited for other posters along the way. All right, also off the top here, we were talking about how The Rock has got like 732 movies coming out, but one of those movies is Jungle Cruise, and they just announced today that they got themselves a new cast member in the form of the Point Break remake's own Edgar Ramirez. And of course, Edgar Ramirez has been in a whole lot of other stuff too. He played Roberto Duran, of course, in Hands of Stone. He was in American Crime Story. Of course, there's the Point Break thing, but we'll give him a break for that. He was also in that terrible movie, The Counselor, but he was also in Zero Dark 30, Wrath of the Titans. He's been around quite a bit. The Rock put out a social media posting today welcoming him to the film. I still don't know how I feel about it, but then again, look, I hated the idea initially of a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Because I was like, really? You're gonna base a movie on a theme park ride? That's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. And history kind of shows that it went on to be kind of successful. So who knows about Jungle Cruise? Anyway, it's an interesting addition to the cast. I'm still not super excited about this point, but maybe my mind will change once I get a chance to actually see a trailer of the new film, get a feel for what this movie's going to be like. All right, guys, listen, before we get on to the main topics today, if you watch the John Campea Show, I want to make sure you are up to date on all the significant stuff going on in the world of movie news, even if we don't have time to go in depth into it. So this is a little segment I put together for you called the Movie News Feed. First up, probably the greatest filmmaker of all time, Steven Spielberg, already has a few films lined up to direct, including Indiana Jones 5 and then his new version of A West Side Story after that. Now, he could have another film to helm, the DC comic book character Blackhawk. From Cinema Blend, through his production company, Amblin Entertainment, Steven Spielberg is already confirmed to produce Blackhawk, but as The Hollywood Reporter reports, the movie's potentially being developed as a directing vehicle for him as well. Introduced in 1941's Military Comics #1, Blackhawk was a mysterious pilot known only by that moniker and leading a squadron of pilots known collectively as the Blackhawks. They battled Nazi forces in the sky during World War II. Next up, if you were one of the people who were really hoping for another installment of the XXX series, Vin Diesel has got some good news for you. According to reports, Vin Diesel and a couple of partners have purchased the rights to the XXX franchise from Revolution Studios with the intention of going into production on XXX 4. From Digital Spy, the film's 4th installment will now officially go ahead, with Diesel returning as the extreme sports athlete turned government recruit, and DJ Caruso, who directed last year's XXX The Return of Xander Cage, will also return for work on the 4th movie. The film itself is expected to start shooting before December of 2018. The last XXX movie did modestly well, taking in $346 million at the worldwide box office. Up next, There's been talk for years now about a potential Gremlins 3 project with nothing solid ever given. If the movie ever comes to fruition, we may now have a better idea about what it would look like. According to Chris Columbus, the potential new Gremlins movie would actually be a reboot instead of a sequel, as many have suspected and reported over the years. Columbus said the following: Gremlins 3, we are actively talking about that. So that's what I'm working on with my production company, 1492 Pictures. It will almost definitely be a reboot. As pointed out by Slash Film, this new statement is in direct contradiction to statements previously made by Gremlin star Zach Galligan, who explicitly said that Gremlins 3 is not going to be a reboot. As of right now, no official green light has been given anyway to the project, so we'll just have to wait and see how it turns out. Next up, one of the best series on Netflix, Stranger Things, is gearing up for its third season, and they just added a couple of more cast members to the crew in the form of Princess Brides Cary Elwes and Jake Busey. From coming soon, Cary Elwes will be playing Mayor Klein. The character is best described as handsome, slick, and sleazy. Mayor Klein is your classic 1980s politician, more concerned with his own image than with the people of the small town he governs. Jake Busey will be playing Bruce, a journalist for the Hawkins Post with questionable morals and a sick sense of humor. I swear to God, if somebody this season doesn't say, "as you wish," I'm gonna be pissed. Next up, as we draw closer to Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which hits theaters on June 22nd, Universal Pictures has released the next and final trailer for the film. Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard returned for the new episode, in which a volcano threatens the existence of the Jurassic World island, leading to an expedition to rescue dinosaurs before they go extinct. Again, the trailer is online now, but I'll be honest, none of the trailers have worked for me. I'm still looking forward to the movie and everything, but the marketing, including this trailer, hasn't done anything to get me more excited. Next, more potential bad news for Moviepass. In a news story from Variety, it appears that an independent auditor for Moviepass's parent company has pointed out that things don't look good for the service. The independent auditor has raised what they call substantial doubt about Moviepass's ability to continue operating as a growing concern in financial documents made public by the parent company, Helios and Matheson. In addition, the company revealed that it has lost $150.8 million in 2017 alone. This report further justifies the industry's concern that Moviepass's financial model simply can't work. However, Moviepass still insists that they have a lot of capital at their disposal to keep the company going until they believe they can be profitable sometime in 2019. Whether they're right or wrong, we'll just have to wait and see. And finally, Netflix continues to hand out green lights to new shows like Candy on Halloween, but this next one sounds really good. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Netflix has signed a straight-to-series 8-episode order for a half-hour series called Turn Up Charlie, an original comedy created by, starring, and executive produced by Idris Elba. Elba will star in the comedy as Charlie, a struggling DJ and eternal bachelor who is given a final chance at success when he reluctantly becomes a Manny to his famous best friend's problem child daughter. Like most of you guys, I absolutely love Idris Elba, and most people forget just how good he was in The Office as Charles Minor. The man can do comedy, and it'll be great to see him in his own series doing it again. And that'll do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed. All right, and now you are all caught up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news. Thanks so much for hanging in there. Now it's time for us to get to the main topics today, as programmed and defined by you guys. That's right, the main topics are all selected by you guys. How do you send in a question or a topic to be on the John Campea Show? It's simply, just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put that word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep those emails to 90 words or less, or else I can't even fit it on the screen. All right, let's get into the first topic here. And the first one comes to us from Randy K. And Randy K writes, "Hi, John. Love the show. Thank you so much, Randy. I just heard the most exciting news ever. Steven Spielberg is finally going to direct a comic book movie. Now my question is, why do you think he chose the DC project Blackhawk? Thanks, and keep bringing on the filthy." All right, so this is news that came out late yesterday. Steven Spielberg is going to be... Now, here's the thing. Let's back it up a little bit here. Some people reporting he is definitely directing this. It's not. he is probably going to end up directing it. But as of right now, the only 100% confirmed thing is that he is going to be producing it. He has an eye on directing it, which means I think he probably will end up directing it. But let's not get ahead of ourselves too much. He hasn't officially put a stamp on it to say he's directing it. Now, this will happen sometime in the next 5 years. He's got 2 other films already lined up. First of all, his next film that he's going to start working on is Indiana Jones 5, and then however long that's going to take. Then, when he's done Indiana Jones 5, he's going to go and direct his passion project he's been working on for a while, which is the West Side Story, a reboot and his reimagining of a West Side Story. That's going to take him another little while. Then maybe Blackhawk will be the next one, if he even directs it, that he's going to work on after that, or else he might have another film that he's going to work on after that. I mean, who knows at this point? So it's at least a little ways off. Now, here's the interesting thing. I had an awful lot of you guys emailing me about this particular topic. A number of you, and I decided not to use any of these emails as the feature email, but a number of you who emailed me and tweeted me and wrote about it on YouTube and talked about it all over places. Okay, that's great that the greatest filmmaker of all time, Steven Spielberg, is going to be working on a comic book film, but does that make him a little bit of a hypocrite, considering past statements that he's made about the comic book genre and things like that? And I don't think so, and here's why. A couple of years ago, Steven Spielberg made some comments about the comic book movie genre, right? He made a few comments. This is back in 2015. He made some comments kind of saying that superhero movies are going to die off eventually. They're going to die off, much like the Westerns used to, right? But what has happened is people have taken those comments, never actually read them themselves, just heard that Spielberg said something like this, and then just assumed that Steven Spielberg was crapping on the comic book genre, when really he wasn't. Let's go back to 2015 and actually look at the statement that he made. Here's what Steven Spielberg actually said, okay? He said the following: "There will be a time when the superhero movie goes the way of the Western. It doesn't mean there won't be another occasion where the Western comes back and the superhero movie someday returns." He goes on to say, "Of course, right now the superhero movie is alive and thriving. I'm only saying that these cycles have a finite time in popular culture. There will come a day when the mythological stories are supplanted by some other genre that possibly some young filmmaker is just thinking about discovering for all of us." Basically here, all Steven Spielberg said was common sense. Someday, all the momentum of the superhero genre will peter out at some point. And he's not saying it's going to go away forever. He says, and then eventually it'll come back and have a resurgence again. He said everything moves in cycles. All he was saying was that at some point, much like the Western, now most of us are too young to remember, but there was an era when everything was Westerns. Like over 100 full-length feature Westerns a year were being made, right? It was the genre. But eventually the cycle ends. And then we'll see a resurgence of Westerns at some point. But that's all he's saying about comic book movies. He never crapped on comic book movies. He never said comic book movies were stupid. He never said comic book movies were hurting the industry. He just simply pointed out the simple, plain, obvious fact. Everything in Hollywood goes in cycles. And at some point, there will be a time when comic book movies aren't popular anymore. And then maybe sometime after that, they'll get popular again. But that's all he was saying. All right, that's all he was saying. So for all those guys who are out there saying Spielberg's being kind of hypocritical, no, he's not. He's not being hypocritical. On top of that, let's go back to what Randy was asking. He says, why do we think Steven Spielberg chose Blackhawk? Now, for those of you who don't know much about Blackhawk, and really nobody knows much about Blackhawk, it was set in it was a World War II era comic book about a group of fighter pilots called the Blackhawks, and their leader was named Blackhawk. It's like me being called Campea and having a squad of guys called the Campeas. I don't know. But anyway, they were called the Blackhawks, led by this dude called Blackhawk. And that was it was an epic kind of era of adventure sort of thing, right? That's right up Steven Spielberg's alley. It's not superhumans, it's not metahumans, it's not whatever. It's this World War II kind of adventure movie. Gee, I wonder if Spielberg's ever done something like that before. Oh yeah, only a couple of the most popular movies of all time. I think that's why it's right in his wheelhouse. And while it does come from a comic book. I mean, really, this isn't really a comic book movie per se. I mean, it is literally a comic book movie. By all definite, it is a comic book movie. But it's not like a superhero movie. And a lot of people were online saying that Steven Spielberg is doing a DCEU film. This film is not going to be connected to the DCEU. I can almost guarantee you. I never read anything that definitely said it's not connected to the DCEU. But there were also no reports of it being connected to the DCEU. I don't see how this film could be connected to the DCEU. So it is a movie that is based on a DC comic, but it's not a superhero film. I don't believe it's going to be connected to the DCEU. And again, when you really look at Steven Spielberg's past statements, I don't think there's any way you can interpret this as him being hypocritical. He was never saying that the comic book movies were stupid. He was never saying, I'll never do a comic book movie. He never said that. And why would he pick this particular one? Because it seems to really be in his wheelhouse. World War II action adventure sounds perfect for him. So, but again, I'm not going to get too excited about this yet. I want to hear from Spielberg, number one, that he is actually going to direct this himself and not just produce. Because remember, he was going to direct that Robopocalypse movie, and now, I can't remember, Michael Bay, somebody else is directing it. I can't remember who's directing it now, and he's going to be producing. We know he's going to be producing it. I want to hear from himself that he's going to direct it. And then I want to hear, before I get too excited about this, when the hell is he going to do this? Because he doesn't just have one movie he's about to start on. He's got 2 movies lined up he's doing, and then maybe a third, and then maybe Blackhawk. So I want to know that he's doing it for sure, and then I want to know when he's doing it, and then I will start to get excited about the all-time greatest filmmaker doing a DC movie, doing a comic book movie. It'll be great to see. Let's see how it goes. All right. I'm sure you guys are probably going to have some things to say about that in the comments section. All right. Let's move on to topic number 2. And the second topic today comes to us from Jordan Naffek. And Jordan Naffek writes, was wondering if you saw the article in Variety about the Academy board member who just resigned and blasted the Academy on his way out. He criticized him for nominating small films and having a long, boring show, and for how they handled the Harvey Weinstein situation. Have you seen it? If so, what is your takeaway? All right. For those of you who don't know who Jordan is talking about, I found this fascinating. So you've got this Hollywood producer. His name is Bill Mechanic, right? He was just recently nominated for Academy Award for being a producer of Hacksaw Ridge, the Mel Gibson, Andrew Garfield movie. That was spectacular. If you haven't seen Hacksaw Ridge, watch Hacksaw Ridge. It's a gorgeous movie, beautiful movie, spirit-stirring kind of movie. I loved it, and it really shows off just how good of an actor Andrew Garfield is. Anyway, so he was on the board of governors for the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, which is the Academy, the body that does the Oscars, right? Anyway, he just resigned, and he resigned in a blaze of glory. He resigned going out shooting, like hard. Addressing a number, in his resignation letter to the president of the Academy, he listed off a number of topics as one of the Board of Governors members that he just thought they were all failing at. And he went on to a couple of topics. First of all, he's talking about the issue of diversity. Remember the Oscars So White campaign and everything. This is what Bill McCann wrote in his letter. One of the excerpts from his letter is, we have settled on numeric answers to the problem of inclusion, barely recognizing that this is the industry's problem far, far more than it is the Academy's. Instead, we react to pressure. One governor even went so far as to suggesting we don't admit a single white male to the Academy, regardless of merit. And I gotta say, on this statement from Mechanic, I agree with him. Look, when the whole Oscars So White thing started going, I made a video and I got some people mad at me, and I don't care. I stand by this. I made a video that basically saying the Academy Awards is not to blame for this. There's not an Academy problem. The fact of the matter is that year, when all the acting categories and all the directing categories, not one single African American was nominated. I get that. That is a glaring issue. But what I said was, but this year, the right people all did get nominated. Like, I'm sorry, Will Smith didn't deserve to get nominated. for that concussion movie he was in. He was really good in it, but he didn't deserve to get nominated. And when I looked down the list, for the most part, I didn't see any glaring problems with who got nominated. What I said was, the big problem is that Hollywood as a whole is not creating opportunities, the right opportunities, for non-white dudes. There's not enough opportunities being given to black directors. There's not enough opportunities or roles being written for black lead actresses or actors. There's not enough, the studios aren't taking chances on more black actors. There is a problem, a massive problem, but the problem isn't the Academy Awards. The Academy Awards jobs is just to recognize the best of the year. And if it just so happened that year, none of the best of the year in those categories happened, they just all happened to be white dudes, and white people, that sucks, but that's a reflection of a problem in the Hollywood industry that it needs to be addressed. And I said that at the time, and I still believe that today. I still 100% believe that today. And one of the things Mechanic pointed out is that there is a problem with inclusion. We have a massive problem and shortcoming with inclusion, but numbers isn't the answer to it. There's a more systemic philosophical shift that needs to happen in Hollywood to get real diversity up to where it needs to be. And that's kind of all he was pointing out. And I basically agree with him. I basically agree with him on that point. But anyway, he said the Academy was failing on that front. He also talked a little bit about the issue of the Oscars itself, the Oscar award show itself. This is what he said too. On the Oscar show, he said, "We have failed to move the Oscars into the modern age. Despite decades of increased competition and declining ratings, instead, we have kept to the same number of awards, which inherently means a long and boring show. And all I can scream at the top of my lungs to this comment is, amen and amen." Yes, I have been saying for years, they need to cut down on the amount of categories. You don't have to eliminate them, but I've been saying this for years. They have another ceremony that's held like a week or 2 or 3 prior to the main Oscar telecast, where they give out a bunch of other awards that they don't feel need to be broadcast. I have been saying for years, look, it's no disrespect to the creators of short live action, short animated, and short documentary, but for the most part, most of the people watching at home don't care about those categories. Whether they should or shouldn't care is a totally separate issue. The fact of the matter is they don't care. So why not take that huge chunk, 3 full categories, and move those to the non-televised ceremony where they are still honored, still given real Academy Awards. It's just not part of the broadcast show. I completely agree with him on this. You can probably scalpel out a couple of others as well. Like, I'm sorry, a 3+ hour broadcast is too much. It's just too much. You go pushing 4 hours sometimes. It's just too much, so I totally agree with him on this. Now, he also talked a little bit about smaller indie films. And while I've liked what he's had to say up till now, I'm going to really differ with him on this. This is what he said about when it comes to indie films. He goes, over the past decade, we have nominated so many smaller independent films that the Oscars feel like they should be handed out in a tent. What does he mean by that? There's another awards show called the Independent Spirit Awards. You've probably heard of them. And they are held every year in, you guessed it, a giant tent. That's where they're held. So he was kind of taking a shot at that. But anyway, let's start from his comment from the beginning again. Over the past decade, we have nominated so many smaller independent films that the Oscars feel like they should be handed out in a tent. Big is not inherently bad, and small is not inherently good. And all I can say is, while I am in total agreement with him about the other things he said, I'm damn glad he ain't on the board of governors anymore if his attitude is, oh, let's just not nominate a small film. Why? Because it's a small film. I thought the Academy Awards was supposed to be about excellence. Like, I get it. I get the temptation to just nominate the big blockbusters because that'll draw in viewers, but that's not what the Oscars is supposed to be about. Do what you can do to draw in big audiences, but do what you can do to draw in big audiences for what you are, which is a ceremony honoring excellence in the art of cinema that year. And if it happens to be a big blockbuster like Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, great. But if it's a small independent film, then that's what you award. And he was talking about stuff like, basically he was implying, if you read his full statement, he's basically implying that they should put in rules that Academy voters shouldn't be allowed to vote for smaller little indie films. They should be awarding the big major films because that'll draw in viewers. The Oscars is not about drawing in viewers. The Oscars is about recognizing excellence. Now, once you do that right, then do the other things you can do to draw in an audience. Sure, absolutely, like moving some of the smaller categories to another ceremony. Totally get that. But this notion of, who cares if these smaller films were the best in the art of filmmaking this year? Let's give an award to a Transformers movie, because a lot of the kiddies seem to like that. Like, that's just bullshit. That's some straight up bullshit. And it's really too bad because everything this dude was talking about, I was right on board with. I was right on board with the issue of diversity. You're not addressing the heart of the problem. You're actually ignoring the heart of the problem. There's a real problem here with diversity and you need to address it, and you're not really addressing it. You're just making it look like you're addressing it with numbers. On the issue of shortening up, like the Academy Awards being a long, boring show, I'm with you on that. You got to pare it down a little bit. Take some of the categories that the home audience doesn't care to see talked about, move them to another event, another evening where they get honored and get real Oscars. I'm with you on that. But then once he starts talking about this whole thing of, let's just only recognize the big major blockbusters. Well, then what's the point of having the Academy Awards if you're going to do that? If you're not going to recognize and acknowledge the best based on their merits, then what's the point? Then you're just the MTV Movie Awards at that point. Then you're just the MTV Movie Awards. What's next? Oscar for Best Kiss? Yeah, because the kiddies will tune in and watch that. So let's do an Oscar for Best On-Screen Kiss. Like, is that what's next? Anyway, so there's some of the stuff he said was really, I thought, bang on the money. Some of his stuff that he was saying was way off the mark. I just thought it was interesting that we're seeing some dissension within the ranks of the Academy itself. And look, it needs to shake up a little bit more. We need to see more of a shake up in the Academy Awards at this point. All right, let's move on to the third and final emailed in topic of the day. And this one comes to us from the World of Five, who writes, "Hey John, how are you? I'm great, thank you. I'm making my summer box office predictions and was wondering, what do you think will make more money, Solo or Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom? I think Solo will make more because of the Star Wars, but both movies do fine. Thanks." Okay, you know what's really interesting about your question? The really interesting about your question is that in all the discussion about outside of Infinity War, which is technically not a summer movie now because technically it's in April, whatever. You know, what's going to win the summer? Is it going to be Deadpool or is it going to be Solo? You know, I go back and forth. I still think Deadpool 2 will make more money than Solo, but I think both movies do fine, blah, blah, blah. But you were right in that one of the films really being overlooked is Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Now, granted, like I said in the movie news feed, I haven't been thrilled with these trailers or anything. But the fact of the matter is this. The last time a Jurassic World movie came out, it made over 1.6 billion, with a B, billion dollars. Think about how successful Black Panther is right now. Jurassic World made $300 million more than Black Panther did. Wrap your head around that for a second. Think about how much of a smash hit Black Panther is. Jurassic World dwarfed it. $300 million more. Most movies never make $300 million. It made $300 million more than Black Panther did. That's how big of a huge hit it was. And I think I am as guilty as anybody about overlooking Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Because you know what? I and a lot of other people, we all overlooked the first Jurassic World. We all overlooked it. We knew it was probably be big, but nobody thought it was going to break the opening weekend box office record. Like nobody. Not Chris Pratt, not Steven Spielberg, not Bryce Dallas Howard. Nobody thought Jurassic World was going to break the opening weekend box office record at the time. Nobody thought that. Nobody thought that movie was going to make $1.6 billion and become one of the highest grossing films of all time. Nobody thought that. We all overlooked it. And guess what? I'm doing it again. I'm overlooking Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And I'm thinking, damn, it's taking you sending in this email for me to go, maybe we shouldn't be overlooking Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. So you know what? I'm going to learn my lesson. I am going to learn my lesson from the last one, and I'm going to say this. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is the movie that's going to win the summer. Not Solo, which I never thought Solo would anyway. Not Deadpool 2, which I kind of thought it would be Deadpool 2. It's going to be Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I'm going to learn my lesson. I am not going to overlook the Jurassic Park movie again. I did that last time, and it made us all look stupid. So I'm going to learn my lesson and say that one. Now, I don't think it's going to make more than Avengers Infinity War, but by the literal definition, come on, Infinity War is a summer movie, but whatever. By literal definition, it's not. So the big summer movie is going to be Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, because I think I've been sleeping on it. I think I've been overlooking it. I think I've been looking past it, and I shouldn't be, because I did the exact same thing last time, and it bit us all in the ass. Get it? I said bit us in the ass. Anyway, okay, so that's my thoughts on that. All right, with all that out of the way, we're going to save, we got about 10 minutes left here. We're going to take some live questions that you guys have been sending in. So let's go over to the live chat board right now. The first live one comes to us from Mary. And Mary writes, if you do come to London, I'm guessing you're in London, Mary. If you do come to London, then you must go to the BFI IMAX. It's the largest IMAX screen in Europe and as tall as 5 double-decker buses. Wow. An experience like no other. Well, one of the things Mary's talking about is that somebody wrote in, I guess a couple of weeks ago, and asked if I would ever come to London. And I said, I've always wanted to go to London, but I just don't know if there are enough people who watch the John Campea Show in London to justify me going to London and doing like a little community event there. And I asked people, hey, if you are in London and you watch the show and you'd be up for me to coming out there and doing something, let me know. And I've gotten a lot more emails than I thought I would. So keep writing me those emails and letting me know if that's the case. So anyway, that's what Mary's talking about. But that does sound impressive. That BFI IMAX, I've never heard of it. But that sounds like that would be impressive to watch a movie on. So thanks for bringing that to my attention. Mary then follows up with, was thinking, after the speech question earlier, one of my favorite speeches in film, for me, was Matthew McConaughey in A Time to Kill. Brought me to tears. I was like 12 when I watched it. Oh my God, it's been like forever since I watched that. And again, what Mary's talking about is, I believe it was earlier today on Open Mic, a question came in about favorite like speech in a movie, right? And I would have to think about it. I said off the top of my head, it's the Mel Gibson speech in Braveheart. I mean, they're not our freedom, like that speech. I mean, that's a grrr kind of speech. But there are a lot, Hollywood and movies and the history of movies are just filled with amazingly great speeches. And McConaughey, I can't even remember the McConaughey one. It's been so long since I've seen that movie, but there are certainly a number of them. All right, Josh Crichton writes, redemption question. Do you think aliens exist? Are we alone in the universe? What's your explanation on UFOs? Call me crazy. I do think aliens exist. Well, I remember once I went to this, I can't remember what movie it was for. It might have been for Super 8, the J.J. Abrams movie. It might have been another one, but I think it was Super 8. Anyway, at the big press junket they did for the film, they actually had these like former NASA scientists and people who specialize in like deep space science and all this kind of crap to talk about the possibilities of alien life. What they concluded was this. He goes, we believe it would be naive not to believe that there's alien life out there somewhere. Like when you just consider the vastness of space, they believe it would be naive not to acknowledge that there's probably alien life out there. However, they said, it's also would be naive to believe they've ever been here, that they've ever visited us. And they went into all their different reasons. So do I believe that alien life exists out there? I have to. The infinite nature of space? Sure, there's got to be life out there. But I also agree with those other NASA dudes that they've never been here. And they had this huge laundry list of reasons about why they've never been here. I was like, oh yeah, that all makes total sense. So I believe they exist, but I don't think they've ever been here. Josh Crichton follows up with, John, I would like to interview Lady Gaga sometime during her Vegas residency. Would you consider it? I think it would be cool. Live stream and raise money. Yeah. Look, Lady Gaga, let's be clear here. I am a fucking nobody. I, John Campea, am a fucking nobody. It's not like Lady Gaga is like sitting around her Vegas penthouse suite right now just waiting. I wonder if John Campea would be willing to interview me. Oh my God. I'll wipe away my tears thinking about it with these $1,000 bills. That's not happening. Would I consider? Of course I would. If I had the opportunity, go to Vegas and sit down with Lady Gaga, of course I would. But that's not something that I have at my disposal. That is not an option I have available to me. So let's just be really clear about that. Would I do it if I was offered the chance? Sure, but I'm not going to get offered the chance. So no real point in even fantasizing about it. Our good buddy Ben Rayner writes, "Don't mess with me, man. I'm a lawyer." Favorite line from Hook. "I know I'm in the minority, but Hook is my favorite Spielberg movie. All are great, though." I don't think they're all great. Again, I don't like The Terminal. But we've been talking the last couple of shows because the issue of Hook came up. And somebody was mentioning in a question, which all film is subjective, totally fair for them to say, hey, have you ever watched, believe the other film they mentioned was 1941. They say, you ever watched 1941 or Hook? Certainly not Spielberg's best work. And I'm like, hey man, speak for yourself. I love Hook. I love Hook. Mr. Smee and Dustin Hoffman as Hook and Robin Williams, of course, and Julia Roberts as Tank. I love Hook. I love that movie. So we were talking about that a little bit later today. And you're right, that is a great line from the movie. No, certainly not my favorite Steven Spielberg film. Everybody knows my favorite Steven Spielberg film is Amistad. But I definitely love Hook. Let's see. Murray for Us writes, "Do the Blackhawks DC characters have powers?" I do not believe so, no. They are, to the best of my knowledge, they are not metahuman characters. They're just pilots. Now, it should be mentioned that in the New 52, there was a new incarnation of them in the modern era. But even then, I don't think they were superpowered beings. Plus, from what I read, I believe Spielberg is looking at doing the original incarnation of them, like the World War II era kind of stuff. Let's see. Murray for Us writes, "How far do you think the Las Vegas Golden Knights will go, man? What a dream season." For those of you who don't know anything about hockey, this year saw the expansion team, Las Vegas Golden Knights. An expansion team was when the league starts a brand new team. Not a team moving from one city to another, just starting a brand new team. And what that team gets to do is put their team together by picking some of the leftovers from all the other teams. They get to take the leftovers from the other teams. As a result, expansion teams never do well for their first few years. The Las Vegas Golden Knights, made up of a bunch of rejects from other teams, was one of the best teams in the NHL this year. And they're walking over the Los Angeles Kings right now in the first round of the playoffs. So they are looking scary as hell. For instance, I don't think they can get by the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think they're not going to win the Stanley Cup, but I think they can go deep. And the future looks very bright for that team. Josh Crichton writes, "By the way, if I hear you interview Gaga, I'll fly out to Vegas from Rochester, attend in person, and help you out with production." It's funny how many people offer to help me out when I'm interviewing a famous person. It's crazy how that kind of works. I'm sure a lot of people would be willing to fly out to sit down with Lady Gaga. I would too. Hector Jetter writes, "I love when you impersonate toxic crybabies." Toxic crybabies. They are the bane of our existence, but they're so fun to laugh at. Guitar Dude 513 writes, "Happy birthday, Superman. Favorite graphic novel?" It's the 80th. I believe it's the 80th birthday of Superman, of the creation of Superman. My favorite graphic novel. I'm going to assume you mean like Superman's storyline. It's probably. There's this one story arc where Doomsday comes back and Superman fights him. And, Superman comes back because he was dead for a while. He was dead for a while. No comic book character's ever dead. And he basically ends it by taking Doomsday to the end of time. He takes Doomsday to the end of time and leaves him there. And it's a really interesting... But actually, you know what? If you want to go, it's a little bit of a spin-off thing. When you get into the story about how Doomsday... It's one of the best DC things I've ever read, was how Doomsday came to be. It's horrific and everything. It's about how they take this embryo and kill it and then put it back together and kill it again and put it back together, and then it's a little bigger, then it's a baby, and they kill it, and they clone it, and they get a little older, and they kill it again, and they kill it in a million different ways until you're left with this damaged bit of goods called Doomsday. It's really an incredible read, so you should check that out. This is one of my favorite stories ever surrounding Superman. Hector Jeter writes, thanks, Gio, for spoiling the Infinity War. Oh, the Infinity War soundtrack. Hold on a second. Let me grab this. Yeah, so if you follow me, let me pull this over here. If you follow me on social media, a friend of mine shared this image with me. So I took the image and said, hey, guys, I finally got my hands on the Avengers Infinity War soundtrack. And I might give a few things away, but here's the Infinity War soundtrack. Track 1. Cap's death. Track 2, Iron Man's death. Track 3, Thor's death. Then go all the way down to track 10, the DCEU's death. Track 11, Black Panther's death. Track 12, Vision's death. Now, what I should point out is that on this soundtrack, there's a hidden 13th track. There's actually a hidden 13th track on this soundtrack. And the hidden 13th track is Hawkeye defeats Thanos. They probably didn't put it on the cover because they didn't want huge spoilers to get out there. But the hidden 13th track on the soundtrack is Hawkeye defeats Thanos. So once again, soak in all the titles of all the songs on the Avengers soundtrack by Alan Silvestri. Yeah, I had a hoot. A lot of people on social media really dug that too. It's a really funny graphic. I like that one a lot. All right, let's move on here. This one comes to us from Number Thor, who writes, thoughts on the Bruce Willis Damon Wayans movie, The Last Boy Scout. You know, somebody asked me about that exact same movie a couple of months ago. I love it. I love them. I think it is the most underrated Bruce Willis film. The most underrated Bruce Willis film is Last Boy Scout. And it ends with him dancing the jig, which is pretty funny. It's a really great movie. I enjoyed it a lot. It follows up with thoughts on the Daniel Day-Lewis movie, Last of the Mohicans. It's brilliant. I mean, really, what else can you say about it? It's a brilliant film. Nathan C. writes, here's a pitch for DC's Grounded Gritty meets The Incredible. Jeffrey Wright as wary Detective John Jones, who discovers a scared kid who other teens mockingly call Superboy. A clone escaped from Luthor's lab. Wright reveals his true form to the boy, Martian Manhunter, who I know you hate. He's in hiding because nothing of Superman gave him hope before alien relations, but he teaches Superboy to use Earth's legal and investigative standards to nail those who wronged him. I know you're not a Manhunter fan, but I couldn't get the idea of Wright's voice matched with the superhero out of my head. Lots to explore. Well, I mean, I don't know what you want me to say, Nathan. I think the Martian Manhunter is a stupid character. I really do. There are just a number of characters in the Marvel universe and in the DC universe that I just think are dumb characters. Manhunter's one of them. You lost me right at that point. Now, Jeffrey Wright, I have said before, other than James Earl Jones and other than Jeremy Irons, Jeffrey Wright has the best voice in Hollywood. Like, just the best voice in Hollywood. It's amazing. So you could attach it to anything, but I can't get on board with anything Martian Manhunter related. I just can't. I wish I could. I know a lot of other people can, and that's cool. I just can't personally. Guitar Dude 513 writes, would it make sense for Moviepass to allow us to add on the cost of a Prime/XD ticket with each time we choose that would save the consumer a little cash? I think so. I mean, look, there's been some talk about them doing that before, but nothing's ever come to fruition. They should do it. Like, look, if you're just going to cover, if the maximum you'll cover at this theater is $12, and that's the cost of the average ticket, then cover the first $12 of the Prime, and I'll cover the next $8 myself. But that's not what they do. And look, they're already losing enough money. I mean, according to that report from their independent auditor, sounds like they're losing a hell of a lot of money. So I can understand. Let me defend Moviepass here a little bit. I can understand. Look, the movie's already, the deal Moviepass is offering you is already a great deal. $10 a month. And now we're going to complain that we don't get enough for our $10 a month? I mean, so I could see them drawing some lines there. But yeah, it's something they could conceivably do. But again, it would just be another way for them to lose more money. So I'm not really sure what the answer is to all of that. All right, guys, we have run out of time for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Hey, listen, guys, do me a favor. If you enjoy the John Campea Show and the programming that I do, head on over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. Get all the information about what does it mean to be a Patreon supporter, how does being a Patreon supporter keep the show on the air, and of course, the benefits of being a Patreon supporter, and then maybe you'll want to become a Patreon supporter too. And if you don't, that's totally fine. I'm just glad you're a fellow film fan. Hey guys, as you noticed, I didn't get a chance to get to all the live questions that got sent in. Don't you worry about it. I will take all the questions that I didn't have time to get to and I will put them in a companion video first thing tomorrow morning. Keep your eyes open for that, because if you send in a live question, it will get answered and it'll be on tomorrow morning's companion video. All right, guys, that will do it for me for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thanks so much for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until the next video, bye-bye.